very excited to introduce Stan Miller. Stan is the co-founder and serves on the board for both the Wealth Council and the Elder Council. They are the leading education and technology firm for over 10,000 attorney firms in the US. So they're kind of like the Cadillac of all the stuff you need to do for estate planning. If you don't use them, you know somebody who does, I am sure. Stan is not just a really great founder of two of these organizations, but he's also running his own firm as an estate planner. And he wrote a really amazing book that I've had the chance to read at least the cliff notes of. I can't get through the whole book just yet, but I have enjoyed looking at it, called Your American Legacy. And I want to get this right, Powerful Strategies That Instill Lasting Values for Generations. You guys are getting so much great tactical and strategic tools. Today, what we brought this wonderful gentleman up for is to share with you a little bit about how to really maximize that first appointment so that when you are talking estate planning, when you are having some of these challenging conversations with family members, like Elaine was alluding to, you can make sure that you are doing the best service you can for them and for you. We want everybody to win. So without further ado, let me welcome Stan Miller.
Super, thank you. I've been looking forward to this ever since Laura invited me to do this. The talk I'm going to give, the time I want to spend with you the next few minutes is really the presentation I wish somebody had given me about 30 years ago, because I remember the first estate planning appointment I had no clue what to do, and I just winged it. And so I've now had 35 years of practice to do that. So I want to hopefully share with you the my distilled wisdom of that. For us to be able to serve the clients that we serve, we have to create a relationship of trust with them. We have to figure out what their deepest needs are and be able to communicate those solutions to them in a way that is compelling, efficiently, in a way that causes them to actually engage us to implement those solutions. And I want to tell you, I believe that initial client meeting is the place where all of that can happen. And I want to lay out my thinking about that initial client meeting. And I want to start by suggesting that we need a framework for how to think about the work that we do, the process that we implement, and especially to see how that applies in the context of the initial client meeting. And I want to come at this in a way that might surprise you a little bit. I want to suggest that the framework for how to think about an initial client meeting really needs to be a framework that is built on the framework of every successful movie. I'm a huge fan of this guy, Donald Miller. He's no relative of mine, but he wrote a book called Building a Story Brand. I'm going to suggest you make a note of that and buy this book. Today I want to spend just a couple minutes giving you a really quick and dirty book report. I'm not going to do it justice. You need to really read the book to get the in-depth version of what it is I want to share with you. But Donald Miller says that every successful political campaign, every successful business, and I believe every successful initial client interview for a financial advisor, and every successful initial client interview for an estate planning attorney is built on a structure that looks like that. You have a character, the hero, who has a need. Actually, the character has three needs, and I'm going to talk about that. This character cannot solve the problem. They cannot meet the need without somebody to help them do it. If they could meet that need without somebody helping them, they wouldn't be sitting across the table in front of you. They need a mentor, they need a guide, and that's going to be you. And you, as the mentor, will help develop a plan, which is the fourth step there. You're going to help develop a plan, and when that plan is developed, it's going to lead to a call to action where this client is either going to make the decision to implement the plan or to not implement the plan, and the decision they make is going to lead to either failure or success. When I went to the Story Brand, $3,000 workshop weekend, the movie Moneyball was the movie that he used. We spent about 3 hours dissecting Brad Pitt and what was going on in his head and all that in the movie. But I want to take a couple minutes and just walk through how these frames work. So the first point I want to make is that you have to be clear that your client is the hero of the story. You're not the hero in the story. Your client is the hero. Your client actually has three needs, not one, but three. Your client has an external need, and that may be the reason they called you. They may have called and said, I need a will, or I need a trust, or I need a life insurance policy, whatever. And they do need that. That is a need. That is a legitimate external need. But what we know is that beneath those external needs, they have other needs as well. They need three things, and I believe that those three things begin with the product solution that they call up asking for, the tool, the strategy that they know we're in the business of providing. But if we stop there and we think that that is why they're there, we miss almost the entire story, because beneath that external need, there's an internal need, which I believe is the need to know that as a parent or as a grandparent or as a spouse, they've done the very best job they can to take care of the people that they care about. That is the subtext. By the way, I've not met very many people that actually wanted life insurance. I know people that like chocolate and people that like New York strip steaks, but life insurance is not something people want. A will or a trust is not something people want. There is a need underlying the thing they're asking for, and I believe that need is to know that they've done the best job they possibly can as a parent or grandparent or spouse. I also believe that all of us, and you can just do a gut check yourself and see if this is true for you, but I believe that most of us would like to know that the world is a better place as a result of what we do in our time here on earth. And so I believe that the third need that people have here is to know that what they're doing in protecting their family with the product solutions that we provide and with the planning work that we do will actually make the world a better place. And I believe that in the conversations that we have, we need to give clients the opportunity to give voice to all three of those needs. As I said, this client needs your help. If they didn't need your help, they wouldn't be sitting across the table or the desk from you. They wouldn't be in your office. They need your help to meet this need. And so you are the mentor. And as a mentor, you need to exhibit two very distinct traits. One is competence. Competence is knowing your products. Competence as an estate planning attorney is being confident that you understand how the law works. You understand how to create the document solutions. And that's what we do at Wealth Counsel. We help estate planning attorneys build confidence and competence through software technology, education, creating a network of community. Competence is critical. You've got to have that. But the other aspect is something that I think is more difficult to teach, and that is empathy. Donald Miller's take on the 2012 presidential election is that Mitt Romney lost not because people didn't believe he was competent, but because he was not effective at communicating empathy. Do you remember the story about the 7-car garage and all that? It just, that was his take, is that, there was a sense that he didn't really relate to, average folks out there. He also took the view that Hillary Clinton lost in 2016 because she confused her role with the role of the hero. She made herself the hero of the movie, the hero of the story, not the mentor. And so our job is to be the mentor to the client and to communicate both competence and empathy. Teddy Roosevelt, you've seen this quote, but it's worth repeating. Nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. And that is absolutely true. Okay, so that leads us to the fourth frame of the conversation where we develop the plan. And the plan, is whatever it is. You have to listen first. You have to hear what the clients are telling you the problem is. And I also like what Peter Drucker said here, and I think all of us are guilty of this. The biggest problem is we do not listen to understand, we listen to reply. We're sitting there formulating what we're going to say next before that other person has even finished talking. So we have to start by listening, and when we listen, we're able to find the pain that these clients are expressing to us. I have a framework I've developed in the book that Laura mentioned, which, by the way, all of you have on your on the tables in front of you sheet of paper, so that there's a web link. If you want a free copy of the book, you can go to the link and we'll send it to you. We do ask you to pay for the shipping cost, but it's free otherwise. We sell it for about $35 on Amazon. But I want to say that in that book, I lay out a metaphor that is, at least my view, of what it is that we're trying to accomplish collectively. And that is to build a structure that is very stable, that has a foundation that includes a solid financial plan, and it also includes a legal plan, a tax plan that protects the wealth that we've created. But it doesn't stop there. Once we've created that foundational financial plan and that legal plan to protect it with the wills and trust and all the things that we estate planning attorneys do, we go a third step and add the most interesting, exciting piece, which is the piece that our previous speaker was talking about, which is helping families identify the stories and the traditions and the values that matter, connecting them with their own instincts for generosity, because at the end of the day, what people want even more than saving taxes and having their assets grow is they want to leave good kids and they want to leave good grandkids. So I think that part of my mission in my career is to be a spokesperson for the idea that the work that we do together actually should accomplish all three of these objectives. You don't have to choose between them. Good planning has a solid financial foundation. It's protected with a legal structure, but it doesn't stop there. It also incorporates all of the legacy ideas that we've talked about preserving family stories and history, preserving family artifacts, developing an attitude of generosity, identifying and elevating family traditions, and all those things. The things that actually get people really excited. I believe that if you leave out any element of that, the plan that you have will not work, and it certainly will not work as effectively as it would have worked. So once you've developed a plan, you've identified the legal solutions, the product solutions, all of that, there is that moment then where you ask the client to make the decision about whether or not they're going to go forward and do this. This is the call to action. That call to action may lead, well, the call to action may be a decision not to do it. And if that's the case, we need to make certain that our clients are emotionally connected to, emotionally associated with what failure looks like. But we also, and I need to tell this story. Many of you may have heard this story about Cornelius Vanderbilt. I think it was 1873 when the Vanderbilt family endowed Vanderbilt University, my law school alma mater. In 1873, when Cornelius Vanderbilt wrote the check to endow Vanderbilt University, he was the richest guy in the world. And inflation adjusted, he would be the richest guy in the world today by a wide margin. His net worth today, inflation adjusted, is more than Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos combined in 1873. In 1973, Vanderbilt University held a family reunion for all the Vanderbilt heirs, and I think something like 120 people showed up. Not one single one had $1 million. So in the short span of 100 years, the largest fortune in the world got trashed. Some people say that's why Anderson Cooper has to have a day job. So the case I make to clients now is, if Cornelius Vanderbilt's family can trash a fortune, the largest fortune in the world, you can't be rich enough to outrun bad management. We also want to connect clients with what success looks like. What is succeeding? Is it that we avoided probate, that we saved a bunch of taxes, we eliminated the estate tax entirely, we have assets protected, we've immaturity proofed the inheritance, we've protected the family from the cost of, the massive cost of long-term care. What is it that is the real test? I believe that that the test of that really is, does the family love each other? Do they care about each other? Do they support each other through good times and bad? And part of what we do in this conversation is to give people a sense of how good they're going to feel when they've executed on this plan. I don't know how many times, I mean dozens, hundreds of times, I've had people who leave my office after having signed their estate planning documents, and they've said things like, wow, I feel like I just lost 50 pounds. And I'm betting a lot of you have had that same experience. So we have to connect people emotionally with how they're going to feel. So my point is, your initial client interview is really your movie. You've got a basic framework here about how to think about it, but it's 7 steps, and you have to remember, you're the mentor. You're the mentor. You're not the hero of this story. So what I want to do in the time I have remaining is to convert that framework to something that's really practical. I want to look at how to manage the initial client interview so that you can consistently produce success on the very first time you sit down with this client. 3 core principles I want to teach you. The first one is, and this is really important, you control the meeting. If you don't control the meeting, nobody's going to win. The client's not going to win, and I promise you, you won't win either. You have to take control of and maintain control of the meeting at all times. The second core principle is you need to calibrate your listen-talk ratio to about 80-20, and the 20% is you. And this is mostly you asking questions. The clients need to be doing about 80% of the talking in this meeting. The third core principle is that we focus on outcomes, not tools. A will's not that exciting a document. A trust isn't. Life insurance isn't. The outcome that we're producing is the value that these solutions are adding to our clients' lives and their families' lives, the protection that comes with having those solutions in place. So we focus on outcomes, not tools. I want to lay out a 10-step sequence for you, and on the flight out last night, I got to thinking that what I really should do is take all this and put it in a crib sheet and email it to you so that you don't have to script, if you were busily taking notes. And I think I'm going to do that and get Laura to email that to you. But I want to suggest to you that your initial client interview needs to be done in 10 steps and in the order that I'm going to present them to you. The first one is to create rapport by mirroring the client. When you mirror a client and create rapport, something interesting is happening. And what that is that when clients are looking at you, it is as if they're seeing themselves reflected back. And because they trust themselves, if they see themselves reflected back from you, you will almost immediately create complete trust. And you've got to have that first before anything else is going to happen. And the way you create mirroring is several things. And this is much more important than I think a lot of people think here. I think the first thing you have to do is set at the right distance from them. You don't need to be, in my opinion, in a big conference room. The ideal distance is actually 43 inches. There have been studies done on that. You need to be about 43 inches from your client. You need to be able to set physically in a way where your body posture mirrors theirs. And when they change their body posture, you need to wait about 10 or 15 seconds and follow that so that you're pacing them. You need to look at them in the eyes so that your eyes are on the same plane as theirs. You need to breathe at the same rate they breathe. You need to speak at the same rate they speak. And when you do those things, they will trust you. You will create the rapport that you need to be able to move forward with every other aspect of the interview. The second thing is learn about them. And I like to do this in this sequence. I like to find out about the people I'm sitting with first. I know they got parents and kids and all that, but I want to hear about them first. I want to have them tell me about themselves. And by the way, any number of times we have type A guys, business owners, doctors that come in and they have their financial statements and they want to shove that in front of us and talk about that. The thing I have learned is that I can politely and gently just push that information aside and assure them that we will get to that, and I pat it gently and tell them, but first I want to know about you. Tell me about you. And they'll look at each other quizzically like, well, what do you want to know? And my question every time is, I want to hear the really interesting stuff about you. And I've done this probably 10,000 times, and I've never had pushback on it for more than 10 seconds. And they always come up with stuff, and if they can't, it's like, well, tell me, how did you guys meet? I want to hear that story, and so so now you're able to get off into the conversation about who they are. You want to find out about their engagement with their work, their business. You want to find out what they do for fun. I really like to know what church they go to. I want to hear about the values that matter to them. If they travel, where have they been lately? It's great to know if you can find out what kind of car they drive. Detroit spends a lot of money studying the psychographics so that car marketing appeals in a very specific way. And so I think it's helpful to know all of those things. And after I've learned about that, then I want to learn about the family. I want to learn about their parents. I want to know if there's a potential inheritance coming. I want to know if there's a potential obligation of the clients to actually support the parents. And I also look at the parents as a referral opportunity. There may be work that we could do for them. I want to find out about children and grandchildren. I want to know what they do. By the way, let me tell you, I go through this, and I've got a little system I use where I write this on a sheet of paper, and I know all of this may be in the fact finder that they've provided us, but I like to go through it where on a sheet of paper I'll write down the name of the oldest child, and for me, I like to know geographically where they are in the world, and I'll write that down, and then I'll find out if they're married or not. I'll find out if that adult child has children. So I go through and get all that basic information. But what I've learned is that the first time you go through that, you get the airbrushed, sanitized press conference version of the family story. I have found that in order to get at the truth that you need to get at, you have to ask the question twice. And so I'll go through and find out the names of spouses, where they live, what they do for a living, what the spouse does for a living, all of that. And then I ask a question that has served me really well. I've said to my clients, help me understand, who do you think among these children, who would you say does the best job managing the money they earn? And so I'm not asking for who's the worst, right? I'm asking for who's the best. And once I get an answer to that, what I've found is that now through a process of elimination, I kind of know who the ones that aren't so good are, and that cracks the door open to this comparative conversation about the relative skills, spending patterns, what influence the spouses have. And that's the question I use to crack open the whole conversation, where I found out about the stability of children's marriages, the drug issues, the alcohol issues, the 5 restaurant failures, and they're working on the 6th one. So that question of just tell me who does the best job of managing the money they've earned is really my window in, okay? So that question has been very helpful to me. So then I want to learn about, once I've learned about the clients, their parents, the kids, the grandkids, and anybody else that's out there that they may have some obligation to take care of, nieces or nephews or aunts or whatever, only at that point do I want to know about assets. And so what I want to find out now is, I get the fact finder if they brought one. If I didn't, you have to tease this information out of them. I want to know what assets they have. I want to get them to confirm the values for me. I want them to, I was working with a client the other day that, said they had $80 million. And I looked at these assets and I went to see the property that they said was worth $40 million, and it just didn't look like $40 million to me. So, I think as planners, we have an obligation to be realistic about, how we calibrate these things. And so I want to confirm values. I also want to find out if there is an emotional connection to assets. And you'll find that, particularly in farm country, that's a big issue. Farmers look at land not just as a financial asset that they could monetize, but as a kind of like another form of religion almost sometimes. And so and then the final question we want to get at is, what is it that the client believes, or how is it that the client believes these assets are going to appreciate? What do they think it will be worth in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, right? Because all of us now, when we talk about the whole issue of planning for the estate tax, we're not planning for our client dying this year, right? I mean, just about anybody we're talking to believes they're going to live into 2026 and after. So we've got to really look at what is the growth trajectory of those assets. We also want to learn about income, because it's income that defines their lifestyle. It's income that allows them to pay for college for the kids and the grandkids. It's income that allows them to pay for long-term care. And if they don't have enough, then that smokes out a product solution for us, right? And also charitable obligations. I'm working with a client right now who has a rather successful business, and the primary reason they're engaged in the business is because they've got about 5 charities that they're really committed to, and they're really running the business to make sure that they have the money to be able to contribute to support these charities. It's really quite a remarkable thing. Then what I would like you to do next is to get agreement on the client's planning objectives. And what I'll do is I will, having taken a few notes, and I've said, so if I'm hearing you right, what you want to accomplish is this, and this. You want to avoid probate, whatever the objective is. But what I've learned is that you have to get really clear about what their objectives are and not be guilty of doing what we've all done many times, right? Which is to project onto clients what we think their objectives ought to be, or what their objectives would be if it were you, not them, right? But what we know is that clients are not going to spend money with us to accomplish objectives that we think are important, but that they don't think are important. So we've got to get clarity around their objectives. I had a meeting 2 days ago with a client that had a $60 million net worth, and I'm thinking that what they're going to tell me is, we want to get rid of the estate tax. And I got a different answer. At least the wife said to me, I've been blessed. And, if we've got to pay estate tax, that's just the price of living in a great country. Not the answer you get all the time, right? But clients will not spend money with us to accomplish objectives just because we think they're important. They have to share the belief that those objectives are important. Then what we do is we go to find solutions. And this is probably for us the easiest part, right? When we're good at what we do, the answers are all there. None of this is rocket science, right? If we have skill around what we do, we've had the right training. So what I do suggest is that if you haven't done this, is that you develop metaphors around the solutions that you have. We've all been to doctors, right? Doctors are busy. They come in, they've got 3 minutes in the exam room with you, and they don't give you the medical dissertation on this. They've got a little story they tell. Well, the story I tell is, when I explain trust, I explain that a trust is like a chest of drawers, and we're going to build the entire piece of furniture. We're going to put assets in the top drawer, and then when somebody dies, we're going to clean out the top drawer. We're going to move it down. And then whenever the spouse dies, we're going to clean out the middle drawers, and we're going to move it down to the bottom drawers for the kids. And I have found that that works for me. That's my story. But there are probably 1,000 ways to do that. But you need to develop metaphors to explain the solutions that you have, and not get clients all off in the weeds on the technical, mechanical aspects of it. You have to really be careful not to tell people more than they want to know, because it may make you feel good. When we're insecure, we tend to do that, right? We need to show the clients that we really understand all this stuff. But what happens is you come away with less understanding, not more. You actually do the clients a disservice by cluttering up their brain with all of this minutia that they really don't need to know about in order to get to a decision. You need to keep your eyes on them. Keep your eyes on them, because there is a moment in time when, if you're paying attention, you will recognize that the clients have gotten it, the light bulb has come on, and they've bought what it is that you're selling. And you need to get agreement that the solutions that you've proposed actually solve the problem. The clients need to tell you, yep, if we do this, this fixes it, right? That leads us to the call to action. So this is the point where, they've told you, yes, this solution solves a problem. And you pause a moment, and then you ask this question: are you guys ready to move forward? You explain your process, how it is that you charge, what are the fees, the insurance application, whatever it is that your process is. You explain that, and then you do the hardest thing, and that is lean back in the chair, keep your eyes on them, and don't say a word. And be prepared for a long, uncomfortable silence, and be willing to deal with that. Because if you sit there long enough, you will get an answer. And in most cases, it will be an answer to move forward. If you jump into that because you're uncomfortable in the silence, then you got to go back and reboot the whole process and start over again. So once they've said yes, then you need to affirm their decision. Remind them of the pain that they're avoiding. Remind them that they're doing the right thing. And then pre-position them for referrals. And then set the next action step. They've said, yeah, we want to do this. So whatever it is that is the next thing. For us in the estate planning world, we like to say, let's set the date to sign your trust documents. And that date's going to be, let's get the calendars out and find out when that is. 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whenever it is. But you've always got to maintain forward momentum. So I'm telling you that if you follow these steps in the order that I've outlined them, in virtually every case, your initial client meeting will produce magical results. And I think it's important that you do produce magical results, because what it is that you do, what it is that we all do, is incredibly important. I've taken the position that the work that financial advisors do and the work that estate planning attorneys do in America is the most important work there is to be done. The job that we have is the most important job that's out there, actually. The previous speaker is using the same numbers I am. In the next 25 years, $65 trillion is going to pass hands from a generation that earned it to a generation that did not earn it. And I just point out that in 2012, Ohio State University, in a study that was funded by the U.S. government, actually found that it takes about 2 years for people to get rid of an inheritance. So you think about this, $68 trillion is about 3.5 times the GDP of the economy. This has never happened. This is something new. We don't know what the consequences of this will be. So we have to ask ourselves a couple questions here. What kind of damage could $68 trillion do to the country and to the world if it passes into the hands of people who do not use that wealth wisely? You think about the destruction that can cause in lives. Think about drug addictions, alcohol addictions, money wasted. The impact on our country, on our culture, could be, it's frankly scary when we think about that. You also have to ask a question: what kind of magical good things could happen in the world if that wealth passed hands responsibly, was protected, was well invested, and well managed? That becomes a growth engine for centuries to come, right? So the point I want to make with you is that the role that we play as planners is unique, I believe. Clients don't walk up and down the street. Whenever they're in the casino, they're not thinking about their mortality. They're not thinking about their legacy. They're not thinking about the impact that their life is going to have, for generations to come. But they are thinking about that when they're sitting in front of us, when they're thinking about buying life insurance, it's not because they want to have a life insurance policy. And when they're talking about an estate plan, it's not because they want a big binder with legal documents in it. They're thinking about what their life means, what the consequences of their actions are. They're thinking about what values they want to transmit. And if we're skilled at this, if we're good at developing rapport, developing trust, and if we're competent at what we do, then we're able to bring to that conversation product solutions and ideas that can make certain that this $68 trillion that's going to pass hands will, in fact, pass hands responsibly. We're going to introduce ideas to clients they didn't know existed. All the stuff that we take for granted, clients don't know about this, right? They don't know that you can protect kids from lawsuits, that you can protect kids from divorce. They don't know all of those things. We know those things. And in that moment, it's like the universe cracks open and we have that chance to connect with people at a heart level, offer solutions they didn't know existed, and get them to buy into that. And when we do that, we'll have a better country going forward. Guys, I really appreciate the opportunity to be here. I'll stick around for the next couple of days if anybody has questions. Thank you, all of you.